I wonder how many years you'd have to commit if you challenged yourself to watch every romantic movie ever made. But here's the crucial question. Would watching all those movies actually teach you anything valuable about true love?
This is Signs of the Times Radio with Kent Kingston.
Ain't love grand? Yeah, well, that's what we think, but sometimes it can be awfully painful. And in the studio today, we have a young lady who's been through a bit of both in the not too distant past. It's Maryellen Fairfax. How are you, Maryellen?
I'm really well, Kent. How are you going?
Excellent. Welcome to Signs of the Times Radio.
Thank you. It's an honour to be here.
'Tis the season to talk romance, Valentine's Day and all this sort of stuff. So we thought, you're a young woman with stars in her eyes, and if anyone knows about romance, surely it is the passion of the young. So you wrote a fantastic article for us in the Jan-Feb Signs of the Times called "The Secret to True Romance." So wow, stop the press.
Oh yeah, clickbait titles are my speciality, I suppose.
Okay, so before we go any further, let's get to know you a little bit. You've been on before, haven't you?
I have.
It was you and Jess Krause together.
Krause.
You were both doing law media.
Both doing law media, or law comms media, I think she was doing. But anyway,
close enough.
We related on many levels because of that, yeah.
Yeah. What were we talking about that time?
Oh goodness, I think we were talking about loneliness and social media addiction and how the two are very interlinked.
Oh, right.
Which was an interesting discussion.
We're talking about loneliness, which is why you had Jess and you in the studio. We were not
keep each
lonely.
other company, exactly. Yes,
we're crammed in here, but it is just you today. So hopefully you're not feeling lonely at the moment.
It's okay.
It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, the secret to true romance, Valentine's Day. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Have you got any plans for this Valentine's Day?
Oh, goodness. I don't yet. I guess the thing is my boyfriend currently, he's the one who makes the plans. I'm really bad at planning. Things will just, as I explain in the article, things always tend to go wrong. Like I'll forget to book a restaurant or it'll rain or whatever happens. So I've just left it up to him to make those plans and he loves doing that. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Just a tip, never refer to your boyfriend as my current boyfriend.
Yeah, true. Oh, my goodness. Thank you. Freudian slip there.
Oh, that's good. I love it. So just to summarise,
yes,
you have just finished your university studies.
I have.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Very exciting.
You're now working with Adventist Media here in Sydney, a colleague of mine, but working on one of our sister magazines, Adventist Record.
Adventist Record, yeah. I'm the assistant editor for Adventist Record, which is a huge honour, and I'm loving it every minute of it.
There you go.
Yeah.
So writer, passionate young person, and someone who knows the secret to true romance. Hold on, people. You're going to find out. So when it comes to love and marriage and romance and all that sort of stuff, how were your perceptions shaped? Like as a child, growing up, seeing family members, friends, families, other people around you, what shaped your views?
You're going on Sigmund Freud on me here,
Yeah,
Ken.
that's right. Tell us about your childhood.
Oh, yes. Let me lie down in your chair.
Yes. What was your relationship with your mother?
That's an interesting question. Wow. I think growing up, a lot of people that I saw, a lot of my friends at school, I'd see their parents around the campus and, they'd drop my friends off at school and they'd give them a kiss or give them a hug and then the parents would kiss and hug and things. And I always thought that was kind of weird. I guess my parents, happily married for 25 plus years, so no problems there, but they've never been that affectionate. And growing up, I saw them kiss a few times and hug and things, but it was never this, whirlwind romance sort of a fairy tale with my parents, which I think is probably a common story.
Okay, so they're a little more reserved when it comes to physical affect, but it's certainly your family's a little more reserved, and that's cool.
Yeah, I guess so.
But is it cool for you though? I mean, are you naturally more clingy, more huggy, and that has been suppressed in you?
It definitely was suppressed. And growing up, I always found it very uncomfortable hugging people and showing affection. So I've become much more of a words of affirmation sort of a person rather than a physical touch. Also, I thought anyway, until I got my first boyfriend and realized that I'm actually quite affectionate. I just was repressed all my childhood.
Oh, there you go.
And of course, nothing against my parents. Like, that's how they are. And I don't resent them for it or anything like that.
Yep.
But it's been, the self-discovery journey, I suppose, in that way.
Wow, coming of age.
Yes, yeah.
There we go. But that's interesting to grow up and learn that about yourself. That really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And look, you probably don't want to, name and shame here, but but boyfriends, boyfriend, like what's your? You said you did have a boyfriend. Discovered you're a bit of a hugger. So what sort of age and what sort of experience are we talking about here?
So not extensive, which is good. I'd rather not have too much heartbreak.
Oh wow. There's a little bitterness and cynicism there.
That's not what I mean. That's what I intend.
More boyfriends means more heartache. I suppose it does, doesn't it? Because you got to break up with each.
We got to break up with each of them. Exactly.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah. Well, they say your first is always your hardest breakup, and I think I'd agree. So yeah, my first boyfriend was at 18. I just graduated high school and was sort of swept up in this, romantic. Oh, he's everything. He ticks all my boxes.
I'm all grown up now.
I'm all grown up.
I know everything. Yeah.
I can even drive by myself now. And that lasted for nearly 4 years. So happy for probably...
Wow. So first boyfriend was pretty serious. 4 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember when he first asked me out, our first, would you want to be my girlfriend? I was like, yes. But I said to him, but you're not allowed to break up with me, right? You're not allowed to break my heart. Oh. Foolish 18-year-old Maryellen. Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so it's like, if you ask me out, this is it. This is tantamount to
marriage.
An eternal commitment.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, exactly.
Right.
Which is a very foolish way of thinking, I think. But there's a lot of pressure in Christian circles, at least my church that I attend, to be married young and to, date for a short time, be engaged for a short time and start your life, have kids. Sort of the narrative.
Is there pressure to be married young, or is there just pressure not to have sex before you're married? I mean, is that really what it's about?
See, it's a bit of a catch-22 because there's both. So there's pressure to be married young, but there's also pressure to not have sex before marriage. But the issue with getting married young is that people can't afford it. You can't afford to move out of home. You haven't graduated university yet. So by the time you do graduate and you can make something of yourself, you're usually like 24, 25 or so. But yeah, that's not really young in the church anymore. You're kind of sitting on the shelf at that age, which is quite confronting, yeah.
Wow, okay, interesting. Your congregation sounds a little different to mine. Or
tell me about yours.
Well, yeah, it doesn't seem to be... I mean, there are still some kids who get married relatively young, but it doesn't seem to be that common necessarily. And certainly there's no one's pressuring them to get married young.
Well, that's good.
But I do wonder, if they are getting pressure, hey, you two, keep it appropriate before marriage. There's a little bit of, well, heck, if we got married, then we could do whatever we wanted. So maybe sometimes young people do rush in because of church pressure.
For the wrong reasons?
They do rush into marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't really want to go
Bit of
there
a tangent,
necessarily. But so through these experiences of your family, seeing your friend's family, or what, how did your perception of romance and love develop? And I think in your article you talk about a sort of the Hollywood dream as well. That must have played a role. And of course, the Hollywood dream paints from a ethical sex before marriage point of view, paints a completely opposite picture. So you have these really clashing worldviews coming there. So how did you, through all that turbulence and competing ideas, what ideas were formed in you?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. So I suppose it's sort of a twofold influence here. I'd say there was a talk on the playground at school, what is romance like? Or does he like me? Does she like him? That sort of thing. And then there was...
Right back to primary school?
Right back to primary school. Even in prep, there's, who's boyfriends, who's girlfriends? So that was a very young age. It was sort of ingrained into me that was a thing that happened.
Well, you were very restrained to wait till 18.
Oh, thank you very much. Self-control. And then obviously there's the Hollywood narrative that is in most movies, rom-coms and things. And that narrative basically says that if you're pretty enough, if you're... And this is the thing, I sort of always had this idea that there was this implicit sort of competition between females because of this Hollywood sort of narrative. Because if you're the best, then you get the best and you fall in love and you have the perfect fairy tale.
Right.
And so when, growing up, it was always... oh, is she into the guy I'm into? And is he into the girl that she's a lot of competition because people are sort of fighting to get the best boy or best girl that's available without realizing that a lot of the time you can be the best girl and you can be the best boy, but that doesn't mean you're compatible. And that's when it all falls apart, because you say, oh, he ticks all the boxes on my list and she ticks all the boxes on my list, so it must work. And that's why I was in a relationship for 4 years, because, we were both sort of
alpha male, alpha female.
Well, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but we both had things going for us. And so on the outside, it looked like a perfect relationship, but we never realized that we were actually fundamentally very incompatible. And so I think Hollywood doesn't really take into consideration what lurks below the surface.
I mean, Hollywood often does have fun with sort of a clash of personalities and a clash of backgrounds, and
that's true, yeah. Yeah.
And sparks fly, and that's what makes the movie fun, But in the end, they, this attraction sort of overwhelms all their differences, and everything's wonderful.
Logic flies out the window, and it's yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so, like you say, I mean, there are, I guess, in a lot of romantic movies, there are a lot of scenes where, look, the candlelight is just perfect. There are twinkle lights everywhere. There are rose petals falling from some mysterious place.
Whoa.
You're in a rowboat and the light is reflecting off the water.
And there's music mysteriously playing in the background. Whoa.
Everyone is dressed like incredibly and looks just like so
$1 million
swag in what they're wearing.
Swag.
Yeah.
Nice.
Is that a word? Sorry, I'm trying to relate to the kids here.
Yeah. No, look, it was a word maybe 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
You're trying, Ken. I admire your attempt.
Okay. And it's funny, like you see in social media, people try to replicate this. Like, have you seen like on YouTube those proposals?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the whole marching band, the entire fire department is there, like with hoses into the air, making a rainbow over the scene or whatever it is. And it's like, what the heck?
And on top of that, they're paying, a couple of $1,000s to a photographer to be there to actually capture it all on camera. And there's a lot of pressure. I've actually had this conversation with my current boyfriend, but I only call him my current boyfriend because in the article I'm talking about my ex. So to clarify here. Yeah, his name's Josh, and he's sort of had this conversation with me. He's like, what are your expectations for an engagement one day? And I'm like, well, oh, goodness. And it really made me reflect, because there is just so much competition and pressure when it comes to engagements, and you have all these expectations. And if he just decided to go out for dinner and get on one knee and there wasn't a camera there, I'd probably be a little disappointed. And I hate to say it, because I actually resent that part of me for having those unrealistic expectations.
I mean, my son just got engaged not very long ago.
He did, yeah.
And he organised a photographer. And I'm like, what the heck? What is going on with you kids?
He did a good job then.
And then a mutual friend of ours broke up with his girlfriend a year or so ago. And that whole experience was mediated through social media too. Who has unfriended who has taken whose pictures off whatever platform. Whoa, the whole thing, and then what do I do in a breakup? You jump on, you find the listicle that says, the right things to do as you break up, and you're reading the online articles, getting the advice, and I'm like, wow, this entire breakup has been mediated online.
It's no longer something that happens between two people. It's something that happens between communities and even strangers. Because I know when I broke up, I was looking at videos online, how to get back with your ex, and people were giving me advice on forums and things about how to get over it. And it's just, it doesn't really give you the space to grieve genuinely, because there's all this pressure on you to get over it quickly, or to whatever it might be. People are sort of taking sides and things, and that's never a healthy environment, and social media perpetuates that. So yeah, sometimes
you just need to feel it.
Exactly. Yes.
So in your article, Maryellen, you tell a tragic tale. Let's face it. Tragic tale of a Valentine's Day that kind of went wrong.
Oh, yeah.
So walk us through that. If you can relive the trauma for us just one more time.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is going back probably 3 or 4 years ago now. I guess to retell what I've written in my article a little bit, but, please read the article still.
People who are listening to us may not have read the article.
Yes.
People who read the article may not to hear this, but we'd like them to get both. Get full value, double barrels.
Okay, good. So no spoilers. Excellent.
No. Go ahead. Spoil away.
Yeah. So I think it was 2015 or 2016. You'd have to check the article, but we went to. It's called Converge. It's like a young Christian camp for people that basically want to meet each other. But I'd already met someone, and we went together. Valentine's Day just happened to fall on one of the days that the camp was on, and I knew this going there, and I bought a gift and I was all ready to go. But on the morning of Valentine's Day, I woke up and I was so excited because I was going to, walk along the beach with him and give him a kiss and give him the Valentine's. I had this great narrative in my head of what it was going to look like. Just so happened that I'd forgotten the gift. And I was pretty devastated, and I felt like my heart just sunk because there was all these expectations.
Yep. And you say this has been a little bit of a pattern for you, like when you try to be romantic,
terrible.
There's some key detail.
Look.
My favourite one is when you're in that quiet sort of moment of expectation and suddenly your stomach gurgles.
Happens all the time, guys.
It's sorry, I think it's funny, but I do see how it could be a bit of a mood killer.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yep.
Okay, so on this occasion, you forget the Valentine's Day present. What's the solution here?
So it was a bit awkward because I'd come with my ex in his car. So
who was your boyfriend?
Who was my boyfriend at the time? Yeah. A bit complicated. And so I had no way of going shopping anywhere to buy something on the day.
Because you're at a beachside
sort of in the middle of Whoop Whoop campground. Yeah.
Yep.
So it was probably 20 minutes to the nearest shop, let alone shopping centre. And so I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? But there was a petrol station that I was kind of within walking distance. So I said, oh, okay, I will go there and I will buy something for him, naturally, as I want to mediate the losses as much as possible.
5 litres of ultimate petrol.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Ultimate 98.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually not such a bad idea now that you mention it. But yeah, so I had a look through, and the best thing that I could find was expired box of chocolate. So I didn't buy that.
Oh dear.
And I went back empty-handed and I said, look, I'm so sorry, but I've forgotten the gift. And I'm like, it was our first Valentine's Day, and that's the thing. So there was all this pressure, and we'd been together almost a year by this point.
And had he bought you a gift?
Yeah, he'd bought me this really pretty ring, kind of like jewelry, and it was Pandora, and it was lovely gift. So were you met with grace and understanding for your slight mistake of leaving the gift at home? I mean, it was there. You could give it to him when you got back from the camp. Yeah, look, with as much grace as he could muster, he extended that. But let's just say it was it was a very awkward time from then on.
It was an effort to extend that much grace.
It was an effort,
to muster that much grace.
Yeah, and there were sort of, backhanded comments made, and sort of like, well, I would do this for you, but you forgot the gift. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
He wasn't going to let you forget it.
No. Obviously, like, nothing against him. We were 18, 19. So
and he was obviously looking forward to it. This is something
exactly.
There was a lot of build up for him.
There was a lot of build up, and that's the thing. Again, with Hollywood, there's expectations, and often they're very unrealistic.
And what do you read into that? I mean, maybe she doesn't care that much about me. I mean, she doesn't care enough to even check as she packs her bag.
Yeah, which is a very understandable emotion to experience at that point. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, but look, that would have been tough, and so I guess in some ways, what your the picture of romance you developed in your head took a little bit of a beating that day by the sound of it.
Yeah, I guess so. And I thought that I was very wise at the time because I sort of expected that, this is a reasonable reaction to have to such an experience, a forgetful experience. And so we stayed.
His reaction
to my
reasonable.
Forgetfulness is reasonable.
Yeah.
And from that point on, the relationship slowly started going downhill, but we stayed together for another almost 3 years after that.
Wow.
But the thing is, I sort of rationalized everything, being a young Christian girl with a lot of pressure to get married and that sort of thing.
And this expectation that you're never allowed to break up with me.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that was stupid. Yeah, it sort of perpetuated and things got worse, and to the point where we just sort of started resenting each other, but we still stayed together because that's what you do.
Yeah.
And if I had just sort of, taken a moment and just reflected on what had happened and his reaction, my reaction, and sort of our incompatibility at that point at the campground. And I'd broken up and just said, you know what, look, I'm sorry, but this isn't going to work because of X, Y, Z. I had a bunch of reasons, but I didn't want to face them. I would be a lot happier for it, and I would have been able to grow as a person, but no, because of the pressure, again, you just you stay together. So
it sort of feels like failing, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It feels like that if that relationship fails, it makes you feel like a failure. You think, now I look like an idiot because I went into this. I thought we had it sorted out. Clearly, we didn't.
There's guilt and there's shame, and I think when relationships break up, it's very, very difficult to only experience the guilt of I failed. But naturally, 99% of the time, I see girls and guys that internalize it and go, I am a failure. I have shame surrounding this. And
shame is a social thing, isn't it? Shame implies that there are family and friends looking on going, oh my goodness, what happened? What have you done? And half of them are saying, you did what? You broke up? You guys were perfect. And the other half are saying, oh, I can see this happening all the way along, And, why didn't you say anything?
Exactly. Yeah.
So shame.
Experience.
Wow. So to get to the nub of the issue, Miss Maryellen Fairfax, you make the ambitious claim in the title of your article that you are going to reveal the secret to true romance. So what is it? What is the secret to true romance?
Well, please read the article for a much more summarized and probably better enunciated version of what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
However, what I've discovered is that emotional vulnerability is the key to true romance. And with emotional vulnerability comes forgiveness. I suppose it really takes on a biblical model because 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4-8, the classic verse, it says, love is patient, love is kind, it isn't self-seeking, it doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, etc. Unless you have the emotional vulnerability to say, you know what, I've failed and I need you to accept me anyway. When you realize that you are deserving of love and the love that God extends to you, then it's a lot easier to sort of let go and be like, well, if you're not going to extend that love to me, and if I am unable to extend that love to you, then we're just incompatible and we need to let it go. So, sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but emotional vulnerability, being able to stand emotionally naked in front of your partner and share all of your weaknesses and flaws. And the issue with my ex was that because we had this sort of narrative that we were, ticked all the boxes with each other, we had a lot going for us, there was a lot of unspoken pain and a lot of unspoken shame in the relationship because I would sort of resent him for not opening up to me and then he'd resent me for not opening up to him. And
which was a response to him not opening
well,
up to you.
It's like a negative cycle. It just spirals out of control.
Okay, so vulnerability. So let me take it back a bit. Sometimes, like when people married, we sort of joke, oh, now you're going to let yourself go. Now you're going to let it all hang out.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? And that sort of makes the assumption that up to that point, you've been on your best behavior. You've been holding back all your personality quirks, not to mention your burps and your
tummy rumbles.
That's you tried to appear as something. You tried to appear as a perfect person. Your table manners are perfect. You always speak in a lovely manner and never show any anger or difficult emotion. And then later you get married and it all comes out.
Yeah. Is that your story again?
No, but that is a sort of a perception and a stereotype, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you're talking about being emotionally vulnerable up front. So when you're even considering going into a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship with someone, what does being emotionally vulnerable involve at that stage? Like, what do you say? What do you do to not put up this sort of facade, this fake persona that you hope that the other will fall in love with? Because you don't actually want them to fall in love with a fake persona, do you?
Well,
Exactly. You want them to fall in love with you. Yeah.
It's exhausting to fall in love with a fake persona. That's a question that I can't answer for everyone. I can answer it for myself. To be upfront and emotionally vulnerable with someone requires, well, first of all, expressing your history and sort of where you've been, the mistakes you've made, the pain that you carry with you on your back, day in, day out. That's very important because if they don't know where you've come from, then the behaviors that you behave, the behaviors that you express, I suppose. Exhibit day to day, they can't necessarily understand your irrational behavior or your insecurities or this and that and the other because they don't know why they're there. And so it does take quite a lot of emotional intelligence, I think, and a lot of self-reflection, maybe journaling, whatever works for you, to realize, well, you know what, I really find it awkward, for example, to sit at the dinner table with the potential in-laws with my boyfriend's parents.
Yeah.
Because, well, with my ex, it was very awkward, or because I've got social anxiety, or because I've had a bad experience. If you can sort of be upfront with the why, then the behavior doesn't seem as rude or as...
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, when you say being emotionally vulnerable, you're saying you've got to be prepared to tell your story, to tell who you are, to reveal a little bit about some of that brokenness, some of that hurt that is within you, some of the sensitivities you have and the reasons behind them. But obviously you're only going to do that when you feel safe, aren't you?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. And I'd say that's the other prong of emotional vulnerability, which is good communication. And everyone talks about good communication. It's like buzzword of the century. But I was actually listening to a sermon. It's by a man called Chip Ingram. He's an American pastor. He's got a podcast on Spotify, and he talks about communication as being the meeting of meanings.
Whoa.
So often, you'll say to someone, oh, I really don't like it when you do that. And they'll be like, oh, sorry, I won't do that again, for example. But then they go and do it again, and then you resent them, and there's sort of like this unspoken, I told you, like I've communicated that with you. But the issue with that is that you might have told them explicitly, and the communication may have been clear, but there was no meeting of meanings. There was no why. There was no sort of emotion in what you were saying. And so unless you can really... And often that comes from like having to turn the conversation back on you. It's like, well, I really find it difficult when you do this, rather than, why do you always do this all the time? Like, I've told you a million times.
Yep. This is what they call iMessages.
iMessages, exactly.
Yeah, give iMessages.
Yeah.
Wow. It's not about what you made me do. It's about, I feel this way because I have this history, and yeah. And when you do that, be it fair or be it not, I tend to respond. Yeah. Wow, okay.
Yeah. But also when you are expressing these weaknesses, it's a really good test of someone's character. Because if you are vulnerable, straight up, you know whether they're going to accept you straight up. And so
you can save a lot of
lot of mucking about. But the real issue is that when, especially young girls I see getting into relationships, they're very insecure, very, very insecure. And so they're not able to look at their weaknesses from an objective perspective. They're not able to say, oh, you know what, I'm really bad at this, but it doesn't define me. They think that everything that they're bad at and all their weaknesses, like the shame, kicks in. And so they're not willing to... They got to hide it.
Shift the blame.
They got to shift the blame, exactly. So they're not willing to open up. So I think it does take a bit of maturity to really enter into a relationship. And until you reach the point where you're like, well, I have all these weaknesses, but I know my worth. And for me, that worth comes through Jesus Christ, through knowing that even though I'm a sinner, even though I have nothing going for me in reality, he loves me anyway. Therefore, I'm deserving of love. That's really where the rubber hits the road.
Wow. So that spiritual foundation underlies everything. Like you're made in the image of God, male and female. You're precious in his sight, no matter whether you're single, married, divorced, broken up in a fetal position on the floor.
Oh, no. God forbid.
you're still inherently precious, and that's a pretty firm foundation to base that self-concept on, and a place from which you can be vulnerable, I guess, isn't it?
Definitely. It's definitely harder than it sounds. That's the thing, because I think a lot of Christians and a lot of people in general, they talk about self-worth and they talk about finding your worth in Christ for Christians, but often it's all talk. It's not until you really go through a difficult experience, whatever that looks like, that you really are challenged to internalize it. So, I think I'm very grateful for breakups and for pain, because it makes you a stronger person.
Grateful for breakups.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but honestly, I can see that from you. I sense that some of these insights that you have, you never would have had if you hadn't gone through that.
No way.
And that's funny how that works, isn't it? That what is really painful is actually something that grows us, and we can learn from.
And those insights as well with self-worth and things, they haven't just been localized to a relationship setting for me. It's been really interesting seeing that my confidence, now that I've sort of been broken and realized my true worth and been through the stuff, my confidence has really grown in like social scenarios and just like day-to-day life. You sort of come out of your shell a little bit more. So I'm very grateful. Yeah.
That's great. Because you're like, what's the worst that can happen? I've already been through a lot worse. So.
I got through that. I can get through anything.
That's right. Wow. No, that's incredible. And look, I really hope that if there are some people perhaps in in your demographic who are listening, who are, you know, in the early stages of relationship or maybe broken up and wondering, you know, what next, what's going on, that they will, you know, find courage from some of that wisdom that you've shared with us today. I think
don't know if I call it wisdom.
I think it's wisdom. So no, thank you very much, Maryellen Fairfax. Really appreciate your time and being vulnerable with us.
You're welcome. It's the secret to true connection. So thank you for having me, Kent, and I hope my rambling helps someone.
Today's episode was based on an article appearing in this month's Signs of the Times magazine. A subscription is just $26 for 11 issues a year. To find out more, visit signsofthetimes.org.au. Signs of the Times has been published in Australia since 1886 and is proudly produced by Adventist Media.
This is an Adventist Media podcast.